Hi everyone, welcome back to the Scrapbook Garage YouTube channel. We've been away for a little bit, so if you're finding us for the first time, welcome. For those of you that were awaiting our next live, welcome back to the channel. It's been a little hot minute since we've had a chance to go live. We had a very busy holiday season, and then into the new year we had some new changes happening, and we just didn't find the time to create some new content for you. But I'm excited to be back, and I'm excited to let you know about all the changes that are happening over at Scrapbook Garage. Today we're going to do a little bit of a store update. I will have a card for you today. We're going to make a watercolor window card, which is a kind of a fun one. And then at the end of the video, we will have an announcement that we were wanting to share with you. We have some exciting things happening at Scrapbook Garage, so we want to make sure that everybody knows what's happening and where to find all the information and all of that. So, let's see where to start. I'm a little out of practice with it all, so we'll just kind of go as we go, as they say. If you're joining us, pop into the chat so I know you're here. I would love to be able to say hello. And if you're watching us on replay, be sure to pop into the chat as well. If you like the content that we're sharing here, make sure that you like the video. That helps support the channel, and subscribe so you don't miss any of the new content that we post. Let's start with a store update. How's that? So we have some new products coming into the store. We have Simple Stories is in receiving right now. We have new products from 49 and Market. Minte has just given us a ship notification, so it is on its way. Yay, we're excited for Minte. We haven't had them for a little while. So keep an eye on the website. So right now we are adding about 150, somewhere around there, new items every few days to our website. And we do have a new website launch coming. So I'm just putting the finishing touches on the new website, so it'll be a little easier to navigate, a little bit easier to find things. The categories are getting cleaned up a little bit. And we have real-time shipping now. So if you are wondering how much it would cost to ship their products to you from wherever you are, we now have real-time shipping activated, and that's for anywhere in Canada. Lots of things happening. So let's see, we also have some new classes coming soon. We have some changes happening on our creative team right now, so we've been bringing the team up to date with how the new processes are going to work, and like the new registration process, which we'll send you an update on as soon as it's finalized. We're still putting the last few changes on that, but there's some new classes being developed right now, so watch the website for those as well. And you'll be able to book the classroom for all of your fun events and things and gatherings too. So there's lots of things happening in the store, lots on the website. But today I just wanted to touch base with you a little bit, say welcome and Happy New Year. We haven't seen you since the new year, so Happy New Year. I hope everyone had a wonderful holiday. I know it seems strange coming in after, February and saying Happy New Year, but we wish you all the best. And yeah, so we'll have a little bit more information for you in the coming weeks, but for today I just wanted to be sure that I popped in to say hello, and that we will share a card, and then at the very end of the video I'll have a little bit of a fun update and an announcement for you that everyone's been kind of waiting on to see what it's going to be. So stay till the end, or if you're watching the replay and not interested in the card, you can skip to the end once this posts, so you can do you can be sure to not miss any of the information. So let me just check my list, make sure I got everything. Yes, I think so. So we're going to jump right in. We're going to create a card, and then at the end I'll have a couple other announcements for you, and then we will go from there. If you have any questions as we go, just pop them into the chat. I'm watching to see if anyone has any questions at all, or comments. We always love to hear from you. If you do create something using the tutorial today, we would love for you to join us on our Facebook page. We have something called the Scrapbook Garage Scrapbook Garage Creative Community. It's a Facebook page where you're welcome to join and share and post your projects that you make using the tutorials. And you can also find other tutorials for our other videos on our website. So if you'd like to share, we'd love to see what you're working on, and we would love to have you create using some of the tutorials too. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to switch to my overhead camera and I'll show you what we're going to make today. So overhead cam, there we go. And let me just move my notes out of the way. So this here, let me just adjust the lighting. As you know, we all have this strange lighting that we still haven't had a chance to fix, but we're working on that. So today we're going to do a watercolor window card. And this card features the Crafter's Companion. Let me just hold it up for you. So it's the Crafter's Companion Peony stamp. This beautiful stamp. And another stamp and die set from Crafter's Companion. I'll show you those in just a minute. But how this works is this actually collapses so you can fit it in a regular A2 envelope. And there's a little piece here that when you stand it up, I don't know if you can see that, but see how that's loose? It actually sits, it's hard to see, but actually sits forward in the window so that we're going to die cut together. So I'm just going to set that aside here, and I'll show you the stamp and die sets that we're using today. So, and because of the lighting, I'm just going to put a piece of paper there to see if that will help. So this here is the stamp set. It's called Perfect Peony by Crafter's Companion. And it has a peony stamp, but it also has some other fun things with it. So this here, there's the stamp set. So this one here has some really fun vintage, like antiques, right? We've got the word peony, some fun flourishes. There's a fun antique key here. This one says something in French, sorry, quality superior, I think is what that says, but I'm not sure. If you know what it says, pop it into the chat, that would be great. Vintage and floral, which is another French version of the word, and then this beautiful peony stamp. The fun thing about this stamp set is it does also come with a mask. So I wish they would include the outside, but they give us the inside. And what this is for is if you were stamping and you wanted to ink blend around the outside, you could stamp your image and then lay this mask over top, hold it in place, and you can ink blend right over top, and that protects the image underneath from receiving any of the color. So these are fun stamp set. And I'm going to actually put that in this way just because I will squish the mask if I do it the other way. Yeah, so it includes polymer stamps, and there's a beautiful sample on the front here that's been made using those stamps. We're also going to be using the Hello You stamp and die set. So this one here comes with both a stamp and a die. So there's the die that cuts out the word hello, and then there's the stamp set there. So Hello You. There's a tip and a trick I want to share with you about this one. And we'll do that as we're crafting along. These are both available on our web shop. And if the link isn't in the chat, I noticed it didn't pop up automatically. I'll add it as soon as I get a chance to do that after the live. I'll make sure that it's included in the description below. And then we're using this stamp here by Spellbinders. And these are, when you're looking at the package for some of the Spellbinders products, it almost looks like you're getting the letters, but this package is actually the arches. So we're going to use this to cut the aperture or the opening where this is going to sit. And we've used a couple different sizes of this die set here. So I'm going to set that aside, and then I'm going to leave this here so that we know what we're working towards. And then I'm going to bring in our first couple pieces. So the first thing that we're going to do, let me grab a trimmer here so I can give you some sizes as we go. Let's see, there we go. So this card base, I've just taken an 8.5 by 11 piece of cardstock, and I've cut it in half vertically at 4 1/4. So that gives you a card base that is a top opening card. So this is going to fold in the middle. Once you've cut it at 4 1/4, we're just going to turn it, and then we're going to score it at 5 1/2. So you just come down and score it at 5 1/2. So that's the first piece you'll need. And then the second piece you'll need is a piece of pattern paper, which goes on the front here. A piece of pattern paper that measures 4 by 5 1/4. And that will give you just a small reveal all the way around the card. Once we have those two pieces cut, I'm going to use a little bit of temporary adhesive. So I have this 3L Scrapbook adhesives, temporary adhesive. I'm just going to add a little bit to the back. I'm going to put a little dot in the center as well because we're going to die cut this piece out. So I'm going to put that on, and I'm just going to go ahead and mount that to my card base, watching the reveal all the way around. And then I'm just going to stick that down. And how the temporary adhesive works is when we're finished, we'll be able to peel this up, and then we can just rub where the dots are. I don't know if you can see that on the, it's really hard to see with this light. There, you can see a little bit there. All I would do is just take my finger, rub over, and it brushes away very easy when we're all finished. So, okay, so we have our piece of pattern paper cut. We're going to add that to there. And then we're going to take a die. We're going to take this die here, which is the size of the opening that we want. The largest piece, we're going to center that. And then we're going to go ahead and run that through our die cut machine. So you can hold this in place with washi tape if you like. Or you can just hold it in place with your plates from your die cut machine, but you're going to roll it through your die cut machine to cut that out. And this die will cut through both the pattern paper and the white, which is what we want it to do. Okay, so we're going to roll that through the die cut machine. And then when you're finished, it will have an opening like this. Okay, so this still has the temporary adhesive on the back, so I'm just going to peel this off, and I'm going to add some actual adhesive to it so that it stays in the right place. I'm just going to move my scoreboard to the side here for a moment. So this one here, we're just going to take a little bit of, I have some Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. You could use your favorite liquid glue or tape, whichever you like. Just going to kind of add a little bit of adhesive all the way around. A little bit on the edges there. And then I'm going to add this in. And what I'm doing is I'm watching this inside edge here and trying to line it up so there's no white showing. And then that should take care of the reveal. So there we go. So I've added that to the front now. I'm going to go ahead and bring in my scoreboard again because we haven't scored this yet. So once we have that done, we're just going to turn it and we're going to score it at 5.5, and that will make the card base for us. So we're going to go ahead and score that at 5.5, and then we're going to go ahead and fold this up to create the card base. So what I do here to make sure that I'm getting it straight or squares, I just pop it in and I push it up to the top so it's using that rail to help me get it straight. Then I'm just going to fold this over, and I'm watching the corners up here to make sure that they land right on top of the other corners. I'm going to hold that tight there. Line that up a little bit more. There we go. And then I'm just going to work my way back here, put it with my fingers, and go ahead and burnish that down. So that's going to give us the card base. And then what we're going to do is with the, let me find my pieces here. With the piece that comes out of the inside, you're going to have a larger piece of white that is this size, a larger piece of white that we're going to use a die and cut down to be a smaller piece. So, and then what we've already done, so you're going to have a piece that's this big that came out of there. It'll have a piece of polka dot paper on top. You just take that off and reserve it for another card, or you could make a tag out of it, something like that. And all I did is I used this piece to cut down another piece that was smaller than that, so that we have a piece that we can stamp on. And then I cut a second piece out of the green paper that provides a mat. Okay, so you use the white from the inside, and then that's going to go right in the middle there once we get it ready for the background. And that piece that we've cut, I just changed the pattern. So if you imagine this being polka dot, I just cut another one out of another color, and then these will layer on top like this once we get them ready to go. Okay, so that's just giving you a sneak peek preview into where we're going with it. So you'll need 3 pieces, all incrementally smaller. The white is cut out of the inside. Okay, so I'm going to set that aside. And then you'll also need a piece of pattern paper Again, this one's going to go on the inside here, right on the inside of the card here. You can see it on the original, right on the back. And it measures 4 inches by 5 1/4. When you cut this one, you want to be sure that you're paying attention to which way the pattern goes, because you kind of want it to run vertically or up and down rather than sideways. So because I know that this is going to go onto the back here, I'm just going to go ahead and glue that in place, but I'm going to leave the bottom open. I don't want to glue it down on the bottom. Okay, so we're going to flip this over. I'm going to add glue to the top. And I'm just going to leave this bottom part open for now. See how I've added the glue all the way around? But I've left the bottom open, and that's because we have a piece that's going to come in underneath it. Okay, so I'm just going to add this to the card base. Make sure the reveal is the way we want it. And you'll see at the bottom here, I can kind of slide my hand underneath. See how it lifts up like that? We need it to be able to lift up. Okay, so then we're just going to set that aside for a moment. I'm going to move this trimmer out of my way. And then what we're going to do, oh, we actually need that again. Sorry. Kind of a bit out of practice with the YouTube, so we'll get through it, as they say. Okay, so you do need a piece. What we're going to do is we're going to create this piece here, this hinge piece. Okay, so we need to cut a piece of cardstock that will work to do that. And then we're going to mountain and valley fold it to create this kind of spring. Okay, so to do that, we need to cut a piece of cardstock that measures 5 inches. We'll turn this, and it will be by 4 1/2. And let me just see, that's actually going to be a little less than that. It should be 4 1/4. So I'm going to cut that down just a little bit. Okay, so that should be 4 1/4 by 5. And then what I've done is I've come in and I've scored it every 1/2 inch. So 1/2 inch, so I scored it 1/2 inch, 1 inch, 1 1/2, 2, 2 1/2, 3, 3 1/2, 4, and 4 1/2. All the way down. You go all the way down at each 1/2 inch measurement. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to mountain and valley fold. And all that means is that we're going to fold one of the score lines away from us and then pull the next one towards us. And then we're going to continue doing that all the way down. So away from us, towards us. This takes a minute. My hands are so cold, it's snowing here. So I'm not sure if it's snowing other places on the island or wherever you're watching, but it was snowing this morning. We woke up to our first little skip of snow. It's really trying hard, but it's not really accumulating too much where we live. But I know other places on the island are getting quite a bit of snow. So hopefully everyone's staying safe. So as I'm folding this, I'm just making sure that I'm lining it up as best I can so that they kind of come almost in a line. So, and then I'm just going to use my fingers to kind of reinforce those folds. And then when you're finished, you'll have a piece that kind of looks like this and it stretches. So, yeah, so you're just going to hold that. I'll move this trimmer out of the way again. So now when we bring this in, see how this is mounted, I'll show you first. So that we left that background paper up so that we could slip the first one in underneath it and glue it in place. Okay, so that's where we're going. So what we're going to do is we're going to find which way is up. So see how these this first one starts going kind of down and there's a valley. We're going to put glue on this side here all the way down, and then that's going to go underneath the paper and glue down. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to add a little bit of adhesive, and then I'm just going to go ahead and tuck this in, lift this up. I'm lifting up this paper underneath. I'm going to slide that right underneath to that pattern paper there. And then I'm just watching the reveal to make sure that the white part doesn't hang over. And then I'm just going to stick that down. Okay, once I have that in place, you can see now how it's tucked in underneath the paper. Let's see, there. So you can see I've lifted that up. This now starts underneath the paper right about here. And now I can kind of push this out of the way and add a little bit more glue underneath this flap. So just go ahead and glue that down. Okay, so now you have a card base that has your kind of mountain and valley, I don't know what to call this, springy thing, underneath. And then to glue the other side to it, I'm just going to collapse it all on top of itself. And as long as it's straight, it will allow you, I'm just going to hold that with my finger, add some more glue all the way across. I'm just going to close the card and hold it for a moment and just let that adhere. Give that a minute, and there we go. So now you've got your base there. So it's going to easily be able to stand up, and it will hold the piece inside that we need it to. Okay, so that's the base. And then the next step, we're going to stamp our image. And let me just put some of those things away. So like I mentioned before, we die cut this out of the center using the big, larger die. So this die. And then I used 2 smaller ones from this nesting set. Right? So I just chose another one that's smaller, cut it out of a coordinating color. And then this one here came off the white one that was cut out of the inside when we did the die cutting. So we're going to use the white one, and we're going to go ahead and stamp an image. I'm just going to set these aside. So I've taken the image off of the stamp set, and I'm going to show you how I do that, how I put it on the block. These are quite large stamps, and the tendency is for people to kind of peel them off of their stamp set. Let me just grab this, I'll show you. So the tendency for people when if this was on here, a lot of times what people will do, oh, I didn't get that on very well. A lot of times what people will do, they'll remove them from here, and then they'll go ahead and stick them on their block like this, and they just pat them down. The reason that I don't like to do it that way is you can get bubbles underneath your stamp set, and if you do that, you'll notice that you'll get like gaps and things in the image when you're printing it. So what I like to do instead, is I will take it off, peel it off of the backing, and then I'm just going to lay it down on my work surface and take the block, and I'm just going to go ahead and drop the block over top. And what that does is it allows the block to stick to the stamp all at the same time. So there's no air bubbles, there's no chance of it not being adhered all the way to the block. So that should work for you. What I'm going to do, if you notice on the original, I have the stem, if we look at just the white piece that's stamped there, I have the stem kind of coming from this bottom right corner, and the flower's kind of on a bit of an angle, so I'm going to repeat that, doing the same thing. So I'm just going to take I'm stamping with VersaFine. This is the VersaFine Onyx Black. It's a permanent ink that allows us to watercolor over top, because we're going to do a little bit of watercoloring. So I'm just going to tap, and because I'm not using a platform, I'm going to make sure that I get this image saturated pretty well. I don't want to give it too much ink. You don't want it to kind of go over the edges, kind of, but I want to make sure that it's enough that I can get a good impression in one pass. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of line this up. I apologize if you see my head for a moment, because I just need to see where this is going to land. And once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to push it down. I'm going to let it sit there for a moment to transfer the ink. I'm putting pressure, but I'm not rocking the stamp back and forth. I want to make sure that it's just solid pressure straight down. When I lift this up, it's likely that this white piece of paper is going to stick to the stamp. See how that sticks to the stamp? Now, instead of peeling this off and risking smudging it, all I'm going to do is just take my finger, I'm going to push it across, and I'm just going to pull that down and let it fall away. And that will help the stamp the stamped image to not smudge. So, and then there's our stamped image. So very nicely stamped. It's stamped really well, which is great. So I'm just going to let that dry for a moment. And while that's drying, we're going to put together the other 2 pieces of our insert. So we know that this piece here is going to be the inside at the back. This piece is just going to come right over top. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the back here. Make sure that I get that covered. You could use tape as well. And when I put this in place, I'm just going to try to get the reveal equal all the way around. The reveal, when I say that, is basically the border all the way around. I guess I learned that reveal as a construction term. My husband is a construction guy, so he always tells me that he always uses these terms that I tend to pick up along the way. So this now, if you look at the original here in the background, I'm not sure if you can see it very well, but we have that pattern paper, then we have the dark, and then we have the stamped image on the top. I'm not going to add this stamped image right onto the top yet because we're going to watercolor this in a moment. And if we make a mistake or something, we want to be able to add a new one if we make an error or something like that, or for some reason we're not happy with the result. If we have this glued down, then we have to die cut all 3 pieces, whereas if we don't, we could just replace the one. So how this hangs, so see how this piece, it's kind of wiggly in there, like it'll move forward and back. Let's see if I can. So how I've done that is if we take a close look in there, there's a hinge. Let's see if I can show you. We've created a hinge at the very top, which is just a piece of white paper that it's a technique called cheating the die. So let me just find the piece here and I'll show you how we did that. So I just had a strip of white. So this was just a long strip of white paper, and it was just a strip, and it was folded in half. So I just folded it in half, and then when I went to die cut it, I put it on the strip on the die, and then as I lined it up, I just made sure that the die did not cut that folded edge. So you see how that's lined up there? And I made sure the die was past the folded edge. So for an exaggeration, let's just try one here. I'll just cut one and show you. So let me just grab a piece of paper. So we just had a strip like this. It can be longer or shorter, and you can use any cardstock that you have for it. And we just folded it in half. So we're just going to fold this in half. And then I'm just going to burnish that down. So that's what we started with. And then normally when we die cut or something, we'll line it up like this, and we just run it through, and it cuts all the way through. If we make sure that that blade, that little raised edge on the die, if we make sure that that is past the seam, you can make shaped cards like that. You can make lots of things like that, because the die itself, when I flip this over, see how that blade is not going to cut through that fold? It's because it's past the fold. So when I run it through the die cut machine, I put it just like that. It'll miss the top edge, and it will create a hinge that ends up looking just like this. So see how that's the area that we missed when we die cut. So that allows us then to make this piece right here, this one, when we have it all together, this lines up exactly with the die that we've already cut, but it will give us a little hinge. So I'm going to show you how we're going to do that. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to the back to add that hinge to the top. There we go. Just add a little bit of glue. I'm going to keep this kind of open until I put it in place. Then I'm going to close it quickly and move it in place so that it is right in alignment with the die underneath. There we go. So that's pretty straight. See how you can't see that on the front? But now on the back, we have this kind of open flap, right? That will allow us to put that inside the card when we go to do that. And what we can do is pull this back in. And because this outside piece is the same as the inside, to mount it to the card base, all we have to do is we're just going to close that. We're going to push this down, just push this down so it's flat. And then you can just match this up right inside that spot just to see how it's going to sit, right? And when you're happy with it, you're just going to go ahead and add a little bit of adhesive to the back of that flap. And then this time, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to hold that down. Once I figure out where it's going to kind of sit, let me just look from the top here. There we go. Once I'm happy with where it's going to sit, I'm just going to push that down and have it in place. There we go. Oop, just wiggled. There we go. And then once it's dry, see how it just lets it fall? When you stand it up, then it kind of comes forward to be able to display the image that we're going to watercolor and put on the top. So kind of a fun way to make a interesting card that you can share with and almost any, you could do a Christmas card, birthday, anniversary, whatever stamp set you have is really fun to do. So, okay, so we've got that part ready and waiting. So once we have this painted, we'll be able to add that onto the top. So I'm just going to set that aside. The other thing that we need is the Hello stamp. This Hello stamp and die set. This is a really fun one, and I like the size of the image as well. So let me just pull this out and I'll show it to you a little closer. So you can see this is a very nice size, like on the card, it kind of covers the opening. So the first time I used this, I actually stamped it first and then went to die cut it. But what you can imagine is that, let me just pull this up here, see if I can get my hands working. There we go, I'm just going to set that aside. So what I did is, and I'll just go ahead and show you, demonstrate. And you may have other stamps that are like this as well. So what we did, I'm just going to put it onto this block here. Ignore the paint because we're going to use that in a moment. And then I'm just going to stamp it onto a piece of this card, and that will be a good demonstration. So I add my ink this up, and then I'm going to go ahead and stamp, and I'm going to show you the trick to this instead. So we stamp it, it's a beautiful image, and now we want to cut it out with the die. Here's the challenge with this die, it's solid, so we can't see the nuance of where this is going to cut doing it this way, right? So a little bit challenging, this die. I wish they would have made the die like a thin die so that you can see through it. So that's a bit of a challenge. So here's the fix. What we did is we went ahead and die cut this out first. Okay, so then what we can do is we can go ahead and stamp this, or ink this stamp up on the block. And there's lots of different techniques when you're using a platform. You can do all sorts of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to stand up a minute. I apologize if you see my head, but I'm just going to now lay this over top. Hopefully I get it in the right spot. And then I'm just going to set that down. And you can see how it's easier to stamp once you've done the die cutting first. Again, see how the paper is stuck there? I'm not going to try to peel it off because that could smudge it. I'm just going to come along with my finger and I'm just going to pull it away, and then it will just fall. So there we go. That's how you get around the not being able to see these dies when the manufacturers make them like a little solid die. It makes it hard to use the die unless you stamp it first. So now that we've done that, we have our bits and pieces here. I'm not going to add this quite yet. Just give it a little bit to dry, because otherwise we would have to kind of finagle this in to be able to add it. So I'm just going to go ahead and do some watercolor painting on this one. So what I've done is I just have a little bit, this goes fairly quickly, a little bit of water. Let's see, I have a little paint. You could use any watercolor paint. You could also use dye-based markers. You can do that as well. I'm just adding a little bit of water to activate those. And just get my paintbrush. I just have a watercolor paintbrush here. And I'm going to work fairly quickly because it's watercolor. And this is not, I'm not on water. This paper here is on Bristol. It's not watercolor paper. You could use watercolor paper as well. But I found with this card, the color was a little off when I used watercolor paper. So I'm just going to kind of dance my brush over the image. We've used VersaFine, so it's going to be just fine. I'm just going to color over all the petals in yellow. I don't want to do solid. Just going to add a bit more water. I don't want to do a solid color because we want some of this color to blend together, right? So we're just going to go over with yellow, and while it's still wet, there we go. While it's still wet, we're going to come back in with some of the orange and let that blend together. Again, I'm just kind of dropping in the color. It's a little saturated. I'll come back with a thirsty brush. To create a thirsty brush, say you added, like up here, I've added a little too much. I'm just going to rinse this off. create a thirsty brush. So I just kind of run my fingers down and pull some of the water out, and watch how this acts like a little sponge. It'll just kind of sop up some of that paint. And then I can just drop a little more in, move that paint around. While it's still wet, we can move and manipulate the paint a little bit and let it kind of mix together. So it's when it's dry, you'll get like hard edges and things like that, which is what we don't really want. So I'm just going to kind of drop in a little bit more. And then while this is still wet as well, I do want to add a little bit of pink. And this will kind of like spread out, add a little bit of saturation and things. I don't know what color. I think I'm not a gardener, so if I'm using the colors incorrectly, please let me know. This is a peony. I don't know what colors they usually come in, but this was similar to what was on the package, so I thought, well, let's just go with that and see how it works out. So here I'm just dropping in a little bit more color, moving that around. A little bit more pink here. And it is kind of moving. It doesn't move exactly like watercolor paper does, but you will see that the color does move a little bit. It's not, with watercolor paper, if you had a really wet brush like I'm using, and you dropped it down, it would kind of burst out. It would like move out to the outside, and it would push the pigments around. But this one is not watercolor paper, so it's moving, but it's not expanding like regular watercolor paper will. So there we go. I'm going to let that dry a little bit now before we move on. And while I'm waiting for that one, I'm just going to add a little bit more water to this green here. And then I don't want it too wet because I need to be able to control where the pigment goes a little bit. So I'm going to use a little bit drier brush, just take some of the water off, and then just come into the green. And I'm only going to do the stems here with the green, just add a little bit of pigment, just the little stems. When I go to do the leaves, we want to do them in yellow first. So give me 1 second here. I'm trying to do this pretty quickly because I know it's can be like literally like watching paint dry when you're watching somebody paint, literally. So I'm trying to be quick, but share some tips along the way. Okay, so the leaves, we're going to come in and we're going to do in yellow first. And again, I'm just dropping the paint in. I don't want it to be too saturated. Just going to pull some off of there. That's a little bit too much. There we go. Add a little more yellow. I know it seems weird. This is called an underpainting. So, and sometimes when you're making leaves are not like just green. They are different variations of variegated color of green. So adding a little bit of yellow helps that green color to just kind of mix properly into the color. I have a bit of a handshake too, so if I'm outside the lines, whoops. I'm just going to clean that up a little bit. I can take some just clean water too, and if I'm worried, I'm just going to flip this upside down. I'm just going to kind of go in and tickle this edge a little bit to kind of push that paint back a little bit along the edge there. So that's good. I'm just going to kind of move a little bit of this green around. The thing about watercolor paint is, or watercoloring when you're painting, wherever is wet is where the pigment will want to travel. So if you go outside the lines like I did, like you can see here, I was outside the lines a little bit there. So I'm just using clean water and just pushing that back just to kind of clean up that edge a little bit. But now that that is wet, right, I want to be careful and mindful. I just messed that a little bit more. So I'm just going to scrub that edge there. We're going to come in with a blue once it's dry and it will cover it up nicely. But if it was wet, the paint will move along that wherever the water edge is, and it will make it, it will add the pigment there. So, and I'll show you what I mean when we go to do the background. So when you're doing we call this a wet on dry technique. So we're painting wet paint onto dry paper. That allows us to have a little bit more control over where the paint is going down. But if I came in and I had brushed these with just water first, the water would only go where I had applied, or the paint will only go where I'd applied the water before it. So it makes it, there's some different techniques and things you can do to get some different effects with watercolor paints. But if you're interested in more, let us know in the comments. And we always have a few different class request lists on the go. So we did a really fun watercolor stamp and painting class last year that people really enjoyed, and I'm happy to do another one if there's people interested in learning a little bit more about watercolor. It's kind of a fun way for those of us that can't really draw, to enjoy doing some work with some beautiful stamps and things that others have created. So what I'm going to do is I'm also just going to add a little bit of this darker tealy color just into the base of some of these, just to give it a bit of dimension. And there we go, that's a bit better. Getting some other paint color down. Just about done here. And then while I let that dry for just a moment, I'm going to take just my paintbrush here, and I'm going to paint just clean water just in and around here. And you'll see what I mean by when I add the color for the background, which is on this. So what I did when I did the original is I just dropped some paint onto the plate here. Let me remove this stamp so that's not distracting. There we go. I just add a little bit of paint. You can mix these colors. You just pick up some blue, and I just dropped it on here, but it's too saturated for the background. So I'm just like adding, this is my dirty water. I'm just going to add a little bit of clean water. Pick that up a little bit more, and just going to kind of liquefy that a little bit and like tone it down a bit. And then when I come back in with the paintbrush where it's wet, it will see how it moves. Let's see if you can see that. I'll just drop this in, and you'll see how the paint will move wherever it was wet. So I know the lighting isn't the best, but you can kind of see how it will move. I have to keep working quickly here, because once this edge dries, it is very difficult to not have a harsh line. So again, I'm just dancing my brush around, kind of going into the little nooks and crannies. I'm going to go ahead and color these larger areas first here. Once you get to a line, you can kind of have a little bit of a reprieve from how quickly you have to paint with watercolor when you're doing large areas. But again, this brush is a little too wet, so I'm just going to peel some off with my hand. Go back in and add some into the little nooks and crannies there. Just going to add a little more color in here. And a little bit more up top. And then just continue on, just coloring in all the background. I'm trying not to touch the stems here because they may still be wet. And if I touch them, they could bleed the green out into the sky, which is what I don't want it to do. So again, just using the tip of the brush to kind of dance the paint into the little edges. There we go. Pick up a little more. Just want to make sure this edge stays wet. See how there's like an edge there? Just want to make sure that gets covered. That'll turn into a hard edge very quickly as it dries. So just want to make sure you're working on those lines pretty quickly. There we go. So, and as that is still wet, you can kind of drop in a little bit more color in a few different areas. Let that come out. There we go. Just kind of bring that down a little. There we go. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch the flower part. When you're testing to see if things are dry, this is the most sensitive part of your hand here. So when you touch your hand to the surface, if it's cold, it means it's still wet. But if it's kind of room temperature, then you're okay to go in with your other color. So all I'm going to do, I just want to add a little bit of shading in the flower. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this purple, and I'm going to have a fairly dry brush. So just activating the paint there. And then what I'm going to do is rinse, take some of the paint, some of the water off. And often I'll have a rag or something here and I'll just dab it off, but this way works too. And then I'm just going to pick up a little bit of that color And I'm going to come into, oh, it's a little too saturated. Hang on. I'm going to take that, put it on the block. If it was too thick, like too opaque, I want to make it a bit more translucent because I just want it as a bit of a shadow. So I'm just going to pick that up and add that in just where those little pen marks, there's little hash marks on the stamp. So I'm just going to kind of add a little bit in between the petals where I think there should be some shadows. And again, I'm not being too precise. I don't want to try to draw. That's one of the mistakes I think a lot of beginners make, is trying to draw with the brush. I'm kind of dancing the brush over the flower, not trying to draw the paint in. You can do that if that's your style, but it's you get a nicer watercolor effect if you just kind of dance it over the top. And then where I'm putting this is where I would think the shadows would usually be, right? Like, so as the petals are over top of each other, you add a little bit there, just adding a bit of a shadow to the stem there. And then once I'm happy with that, I'm just going to rinse. That's pretty good there. Just going to rinse my brush. And then I'm not going to leave my brush in the water. What I'm going to do, and the reason for that is the glue in the head of the brush will come loose if you leave your paintbrushes in the water. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of wipe some of the paint off, or the water off, and I'm just going to set it horizontally like this until my paintbrush is dry, so that the water that's in the head isn't coming down and loosening up that the head here. So, and especially this way, you don't want to store them like this, right? Lots of people will rinse and then drop them in a cup. What that does is it lets all the water that's in the brush come into the head, and it'll loosen the fibers, and you'll start to get filleted bristles in your brush. So if you can leave it horizontal for as long as possible until it's dry, then once it's dry, you can go ahead and store them up in a cup. So I'm going to go ahead and set that aside. I'll let my brush over there. Set my other things aside. Just clean up my work surface a little bit here. While that's drying, give it a couple minutes. And then what I'm going to do is bring my card base back in. And then we know that when this is dry, I'm not going to do it quite yet. It's going to fit right over top just like that, right? But I do want to do just a little bit of pen work here, so I have to wait a second just while it dries a little bit. And what I'm going to do is come in with my white pen, and I'm just going to add a little bit of detail work. So I'm just going to kind of follow where those the little sketch lines are. I'm just going to flick my pen forward wherever they are, and some on the petal tops, pull it down, and just add a little bit. It's not showing up as well as it would if it was completely dry, but you'll get the idea. Just kind of go in and add some details. I can add a few highlights across the petals, right? Little highlights on the leaves and the stem. And I just kind of sketch them in. Again, I'm not trying to draw a solid line, just kind of looking for it to put down just a little bit of pigment so that it looks a bit sketchy, similar to this style of the flower. But it just catches the highlights just a little bit. There we go. So once I'm happy with that, and like I say, these will show up a little bit better once it is dry all the way. There we go. And I just have one last thing to do. I'm just going to use a black pen here. Come in and I'm just going to color in that part of the flower. Just going to add some little sketchy marks in here just to reinforce that. Sometimes when you paint over the black lines, you kind of lose them a bit. So I'm just going to add that back in a little bit. There we go. And then what I'm going to do, we know it's going to go in place, so I can add my glue now. You could add a dimensional adhesive to this if you wanted and put it on pop dots or something, but I figure it's dimensional just by the way the card's created, so you don't really need a whole lot more. I'm just going to go ahead and add that in. Once I'm happy, I'll hold that down for a second. Let it adhere. I'm just kind of squishing this down out of my way as I go, just to kind of get a little bit more there. And then the hello, we're going to add here. This one we are going to put on a little bit of dimensional adhesive. When I do this, I want to consider where this is going to land, right? So you can see both of these are going to touch, but right on the outside, thinking about where this is going to go underneath and not be seen from the other side. And then same with here, I'm only coming up just a little bit on the bottom of the hello. So I'm just going to put a couple here, and you could always trim these down too, if you needed to. And just put one there across the bottom, put one over here on the very edge, and then one over here on the very edge. And go ahead and peel these off. There we go. And then I always, as a little bit of insurance, just add a dot of adhesive to the back. I know they're strong, it's just kind of a habit that I've gotten into. I don't know why, but I always add just a little bit of insurance. And then I'm just going to go ahead, I'm going to line this up, and when I'm happy with where it sits, I'm going to go ahead and stick that down. So I'm going to tuck that in, press it down there and there. Just let that sit for a moment. And then to embellish, we just have some flat back pearls. These ones happen to be by Spellbinders. Let me just pull it in for you. Sorry about the crinkly packaging. I know that's a little loud for the microphones. Just going to take a few of these. These are just little flat back pearls. So I'm just going to take a couple of those. Oops. There we go. And I've got one small one up there. I'll take a medium sized one as well. There we go. Oh, goodness. There we go. Oh, now I'm stuck to me. Oh, goodness me. Goodness me. Oh, look at this. There we go. Okay. There. Got one there and one there. That's an extra large one. Put that one back on there. And then just a little one. Oh, my Lanta. Oh, there we go. I wonder how many times that's happened to people. Putting little embellishments on, picking them up with your tweezers, and they end up across the room. That happens to me all the time. So, there we go. You can always tell because the vacuum cleaner has a little bit of trouble picking them up. So, there we go. Okay, let me just take this out of the way here. And then we'll bring these back in. There we go. So, there's 2 watercolor window cards. Kind of a fun way. I hope you enjoyed that, and that you will make one of your own. You could do these in different shapes as well. You could do a circle, you could do a square. The biggest thing, you just have to make sure that you put your pattern paper on the front of the card before you die cut that first image, and that will give you the backing that you need, and the piece for the middle that you'll need that is coming out. And then yeah, you can see it's just gonna kind of sit open and level as it sits on the shelf. But yeah. Very cute. I hope you enjoyed that, and if you do make something, please share it with us. I'm going to switch back over to my overhead camera now, so just bear with me here. Change my lighting and everything. There we go. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. I hope you had fun with that. It's a kind of a fun way to create a new style card, and like I say, it would work for birthday, anniversary, anything that you need to create for. And then of course you can always, like I didn't mention, but here you have the back panel here. You could always put your sentiment or your greeting on the back of the card as well. But yeah, it's kind of a pretty one, hey? How it sits like that. It kind of moves. Yeah. Okay, if you do create with that, please do share with us. You can either email us a photo of what you've made, or you can drop it into the Scrapbook Garage Facebook page, Scrapbook Garage Creative Community. You're welcome to join us there. And you can text it to us as well. You can use the store phone number and text us pictures. We always love to see what you're working on. So that wraps up our live. I do have the announcement. I know everybody's been waiting on pins and needles and asking and all the fun things. So without further ado, what we are doing, the big announcement is, drum roll. I don't know if I can do a drum roll. Oh, there we go. It's really not that big of a deal, but it is exciting for us. So as you know, one of the things that we do at Scrapbook Garage is we host garage sales. We also act as a conduit to between organizations in our community that are working in the arts world, and we match unused supplies or no longer wanted supplies from all of you, our creative community. You bring in your donations, and we will either pass them along to people in our community that can use them. We will connect them to organizations such as 4-H, Girl Guides, any of the other organizations that we act as a conduit for. And often we are able to move some of that product through to other members of our community through our garage sales. For the past maybe 10 years or so, we've been doing that kind of work. And what we're noticing is there are often items that people would like to consign and sell and have it benefit the community in some way, but they're not quite sure how to do that. Maybe they can't be there for a garage sale and be able to get a table, things like that. So what we're doing is we are adding a consignment area called the Scrapbook Garage Thrift Shop to our store. So that means that any of the items that we either purchase from estates or are donated to the store that we think would be a better opportunity to sell and have the money donated to our Scrapbook Garage Community Giving Fund, or if it's just people consigning and wanting to downsize, it will depend on the space available in the store. As you all know, we have a very small store, but we are adding a Scrapbook Garage thrift shop. So what that means is items that are purchased in the thrift shop will have to be purchased separately from your main items in the store. And the reason for that is the connection to the Community Giving Fund. It allows us to track the sales separately and make sure those donations get where they're intended to go. You can use cash or debit to purchase them, but you will not be able to use a credit card, and that is because the fees are so high on credit card purchases that we're requesting that people pay with either cash or debit. We are working on getting that set up right now. It is not yet available in the store, so please don't rush down and have a look. It is not yet set up. We're hoping to have it set up by the end of this weekend coming. So, and there's some really good stuff getting it started there. So I hope you're really excited about that. I think it's going to be a great way that we can help to support our community as well as the crafters in our community that would like to move and rehome some of their products and things that they don't need anymore. So Scrapbook Garage Thrift Shop, now paired with Scrapbook Garage. We're super excited about that. And there'll be new things added all the time, right? As they sell, it'll make room for new things and things like that. That said, if you have items that you would like to bring in to go to the Scrapbook Garage Thrift Shop, please contact us ahead of time. We are very small on space. We will only be able to add items as space allows, and we don't have a lot of storage space in the store. So if you could please contact us ahead of time, ask if there's a time you can bring them by, or if there's space for you to have your items there, that would be really wonderful. And we will work with you to make sure that we keep the thrift shop all filled up, and that will help support our community as well. Just know it is a ever-evolving airplane that we're building as we fly. So there may be some changes, there may be some involvement there, but right now we're just super excited to be able to offer another way to support both our crafters and our community. So yeah. Once we have it all set up, we'll post some pictures to our Facebook page and through social media. We might even do a live sometime from the store. If I can figure out how to get all of this to work down there, then I'm happy to do a live from the store and show you what's there. But anyway, that's it. So don't forget to like this video if you like the content. Be sure to subscribe. Oh, the other thing that I want to mention too, I know we've been talking about going live on our YouTube channel every week. It's just proving to be a little bit too much to come up with content every week. So we're going to post a video every second week. So that means we won't be live next week, which is February, what day is it today? The 17th today. So not February 24th, but we will be live again on March 3rd. So yeah, so be sure to like and subscribe and check us out on Facebook, like the store page, and please join the Scrapbook Garage creative community. We'd love to see you there and see what you're working on. Okay? Well, I hope you all have a wonderful week. If you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out and share what you make. We'd love to see it. Okay? Have a great week. See you next week. Bye, everyone.